You probably thought Hamilton just had an off weekend. Admit it. P8 looked like another lost Sunday. But inside Ferrari's garage, the truth was far louder than the result. When the engineers closed the door for the post-race briefing, the tension could be felt through the walls. Hamilton didn't raise his voice. He didn't need to. His tone alone froze the room. The data screens were still glowing red from overheating warnings, tire degradation charts scattered across the table, but Hamilton's first words cut through everything. We didn't lose performance. We lost direction. The room went silent. His race engineer, Riccardo Adami, shifted in his chair. Leclerc's camp had already left the debrief early, satisfied with P4, but Hamilton wasn't done. He'd studied every sector, every line of telemetry. He knew exactly where Ferrari went wrong, and this time, he wasn't taking the blame for driver error. This wasn't just a bad race. It was a technical failure, hidden behind strategic excuses, and Hamilton was about to expose it all. Hamilton leaned forward, elbows on the table, eyes fixed on the telemetry. "Lap 38, he said. "Explain this." Adami's throat tightened. The room dimmed as the engineers projected the data trace, a sharp dip in power output, then erratic brake pressure spikes. "It's thermal load," Adami said. "We lost efficiency through the rear axle. The car didn't lose efficiency," Hamilton interrupted. "You changed the cooling strategy after FP3. Silence. Every head turned. The modification was supposed to be minor, a small adjustment to manage the high altitude of Mexico. But Hamilton's tone carried an accusation. They'd compromised performance to protect the numbers. "Who approved that change?" he asked. No one answered. The screen told the rest. Hamilton's car had been 7 degrees hotter than Leclerc's for over 20 laps. The reason for P8 wasn't driving. It was a setup call Ferrari thought he wouldn't notice. Adami swallowed hard. He knew what this meant. Hamilton hadn't come to question the data. He'd come to prove he understood it better than anyone in that room. Adami tried to recover. "Lewis, the change was necessary. With your driving style, we were seeing brake fade beyond the safety window. We had to reduce load." Hamilton raised a hand. "You reduced load and killed rotation. The car couldn't turn after lap 30. He didn't need to shout. His precision hurt more than anger. The engineers could see it on the graph. Hamilton's corner entry speed was identical to Leclerc's, but his mid-corner delta fell off a cliff. Not from mistakes, from physics. The car was refusing to rotate. One of the younger data analysts whispered, "He's right." That sentence was the crack that split the room. Adami leaned back, speechless. Vasseur, seated at the end of the table, broke the silence. "Lewis, what would you have done differently?" Hamilton didn't hesitate. "I would have trusted the driver who warned about this in FP1. You could hear a pin drop. It wasn't defiance, it was proof. Ferrari hadn't just lost pace. They'd lost control of their process, and now Hamilton had exposed it in front of everyone. Vasseur rubbed his forehead, eyes darting between Hamilton and the frozen engineers. The air in the debrief room felt heavy, charged, like everyone knew they were witnessing a shift in Ferrari's power dynamic. "Lewis," Vasseur began carefully, "we can't run the program around a single driver's feeling." Hamilton didn't even look up from the data tablet in front of him. "You already did," he said. "You just built it around the wrong one." The room stopped breathing. Leclerc wasn't there, but his absence was deafening. Everyone knew Hamilton wasn't attacking his teammate. He was attacking the hierarchy that had protected comfort over correction. Vasseur leaned back, testing his authority. "We'll review it for Brazil," he said. Hamilton finally looked up, calm and surgical. "No, Fred. We'll fix it before Brazil." He stood, unplugged the tablet, and left the room. For a moment, no one moved. Adami exhaled shakily, realizing that the driver he once guided was now leading the team without saying it outright. Ferrari didn't just have a new driver. It had a new order. By Monday morning, the story was already spreading through Maranello's corridors. Not officially, not through emails or memos, but through whispers. "Did you hear what Hamilton told Vasseur?" He said we'll fix it before Brazil. For the first time, the phrase didn't sound like arrogance. It sounded like leadership. Inside the garage, the atmosphere was different. Mechanics who had once followed instructions now began asking questions. Junior engineers double-checked setup directives instead of nodding them through. One technician murmured, "Hamilton's right. The balance data doesn't match the simulation." Adami pretended not to hear, but the shift was obvious. The authority that used to orbit around the pit wall was now anchored in car number 44. Leclerc arrived later that afternoon, quiet, observant. When he saw Hamilton reviewing telemetry alone, he hesitated, not out of resentment, but realization. For years, Ferrari had been a team built on tradition and hierarchy. Now it was being rebuilt on accountability and truth, values Ferrari hadn't seen in a long time. And it all started with a whisper in the garage. Leclerc didn't speak right away. He just watched. Hamilton, seated in front of the glowing telemetry screens, scrolled through laps with a quiet precision that made even the engineers nervous. No grand gestures, no theatrics, just analysis that cut through excuses. When Hamilton finally looked up, Leclerc forced a smile. "You're getting quite comfortable here." Hamilton returned the look. "I'm just trying to make the car faster." It wasn't a threat, but it felt like one. Leclerc turned toward his own engineer. "Let's check our long-run deltas again," he said, his tone sharper than usual. The rivalry was no longer just on track. It was in the air, in every line of code, in every graph that compared red versus red. That night, Leclerc stayed late in the simulator. Not because he was chasing setup improvements, but because he could feel something changing. The team he thought would revolve around him now had another center of gravity. And as the lights in Maranello dimmed, one truth became clear. Ferrari had entered a new era, not through politics, but through performance. 2 days before Brazil, something strange happened. A set of internal simulation logs vanished from Ferrari's shared database, files tied directly to Hamilton's feedback after Mexico. When engineers questioned it, they were told, "It's being reviewed, don't discuss it." But in Formula One, nothing truly disappears. One young data analyst, loyal to Hamilton, quietly made a backup. And what he found confirmed what the 7-time champion had been saying all along. Hamilton's telemetry exposed inconsistencies between the SF-25's predicted and actual aerodynamic balance. The car's drag maps had been adjusted after qualifying, without his approval. When Adami saw the report, his pulse quickened. He realized the reason Hamilton's words hit so hard wasn't ego, it was evidence. Someone inside Ferrari had been trying to protect the old model of control by hiding data that proved Hamilton right. That night, the backup reached Hamilton's hands. He didn't rage, he didn't even smile. He just said one line to Adami before leaving the factory. "Truth always finds traction, even in Maranello." The next morning, the storm began. When Hamilton arrived in São Paulo, there was no trace of tension on his face, no press statement, no outburst, just quiet focus, the kind that makes entire teams nervous. Ferrari's leadership tried to keep things normal. But everyone in the paddock knew something had shifted. Leclerc avoided eye contact in the driver's briefing. Adami stayed uncharacteristically silent on the radio checks. Even the mechanics whispered that the Brazil setup came straight from Hamilton's notes, not the simulation department. During the pre-race meeting, Vasseur asked for optimism. Hamilton didn't give it. He gave direction. "We've seen what happens when decisions hide behind fear," he said evenly. "Let's try truth this weekend." The room fell silent. Not out of rebellion, out of respect. Because for all the politics, pride, and secrecy, Ferrari had finally found what it had been missing for years. A driver who didn't just drive the car, he drove the culture. As Hamilton walked toward the SF-25, the red of Ferrari looked different under the Brazilian sun. Not like a symbol of pressure, but like a warning. A storm was coming. And this time it was dressed in scarlet.